From the usual suspects, the types of mistakes we're looking for that students usually make at some point, suspect one is verb tense. This is a simplified summary of how to use verb tenses. Remember, we're not going to go too deeply into this grammar. But if you want to go into more detail, there's a supplementary file you can download. Go for it. So the way we've looked at teaching tenses over the years, we found that it can become very complicated and unnecessarily complicated. So we decided to simplify it. We recommend that you ask yourself 3 simple questions. Questions 1. Are the actions in the past, present, future, or more than one of these tenses? So think to yourself, okay, which tense am I looking at? Is it something from the past, in the present, to the future, maybe a combination? Question 2, do you want to focus on a repeated action or a result? And this is a very important difference, so we'll look at this. The continuation of an action as well is something that can come up, and we need to then decide, do we use a simple or a continuous tense? Number 3, do we know or prioritize who or what does the action? This is in terms of passive versus active voice. Okay, question 1. Past, present, future, or a mix? Is or are the actions in the past, present, future, or more than one of these? Well, let's look at case 1. Imagine it's a past action, use a past form. It's that simple. For example, she was training all day yesterday. Yesterday is the indicator that we should be using the past tense. It's an action which was temporary, but we also want to emphasize that it was the whole day, so we use the past continuous. Example number 2. Before Taylor received the necklace, she had not realized he loved her. So she had not realized he loved her. We're using there the past perfect plus the past simple. It's all in the past form. We'll go into these in more detail separately. Case 2. Present action or actions use a present form. So case 1 was the past form. Case 2 is very simply the present form. I live in a satellite village, example 3. I live, it's a fact, it's now, it's a state, it's not an action, it's just, this is the state, this is the situation. Example 4, Ted is sleeping in the garden, so please don't disturb him. The context is the longer action is in the present continuous, and the possible shorter action or incident or moment is in the present simple. Case 3. Future actions use a future form. It's not rocket science, but there are different types of future tenses, of course. Example 3. He is presenting his proposal at 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's what we call an arrangement. Notice that it's 9 a.m. tomorrow. Well, when you've made an arrangement and you refer to the arrangement, you use the present continuous. Number 6. They will receive their scholarship money next week. It's almost as if we're making a promise here. It's the future simple. We use will. The train arrives at 5:47. Interestingly, we sometimes use the present simple, and it's typically when we refer to a scheduled event such as an aircraft taking off, landing, a train arriving, etc. Case 4, finally, more than one of these. Well, this is where we use the perfect form. But we also need a reference point. All right. In example number 8, the reference point is by the time you graduate. Okay. The tree you planted last year will have started bearing fruit. Mixing up things that will be from a future perspective in the past, but as we're talking now, the other thing, in other words, bearing fruit, is future. Example 9, her energy has increased since she lost weight. Okay, so I really don't go too much into each of these grammatical points. You can always just look at some supplementary material, and there'll be a quiz on each of these parts, which you will be expected to complete before moving on to the next part. Case 1 for question 2, repeated action, result, or continuation. So case 1, repeated actions or habits. Use a simple, non-continuous tense. This is extremely important. It's a very common error where people use a continuous tense because it makes sense according to their own language. Example 1, I cycle to work, even if the weather is bad. It's an everyday action. You could think of it almost as a habit. Guess what? We use the present simple. Example 2. She eats breakfast at 7:30 a.m. It's a daily habit. We are creatures of habit. Case 2. A result, again, uses simple, non-continuous tense, that is, for example, example 3. The company broke its sales record last month. It's a fact. It's something that's completed in the past. We're not connecting it to the present. We simply use last month as a reference point, and we say broke, irregular, from break. Case 3. A temporary action or situation. So each of these cases, just review them again in your own time before you do the mini test. A temporary action or situation use a continuous tense. It's one of the key issues that you need to make a breakthrough. When you're speaking, if you make a mistake, just go back and correct it. You'll actually get points in the TOEFL if you've made a mistake in the speaking and go back and correct it. Here we go, number 4. We were negotiating a better price for our services. We were negotiating. It was a temporary situation. We're not focusing on whether or not, in example 4, the negotiations were completed or not. We just want to say it was happening. Case 4, the continuation of an action or situation using a continuous form. Okay, so this continuation, again, uses the continuous form. You have been studying for TOEFL for over 2 months. It started over 2 months ago. During that period of time, yes, you've been preparing for your TOEFL. Sometimes things are better than other times, but anyway, we're deciding to use the present perfect continuous because we want to emphasize the time issue. Again, you can go to a good grammar book, look at the additional support material and understand the slight differences between, for example, present perfect simple and present perfect continuous. As you can see from this, it's focusing on the continuation rather than the completion. Okay, question 3. When we think about the passive voice is a verb form that uses the auxiliary verb to be. Auxiliary verb just means a verb that helps us do something. It was, has been, is, had been, will be, etc. Different forms of the verb to be. We use it to set up in the third form, for example, in the passive, the participle form in the passive, or in the perfect tense. Practice if you don't know this already. You soon will. Example 1. Every piece of fruit has been eaten. It's a result. We're using the simple tense, but we're connecting it from the past to the present. And we're not saying who actually ate the fruit. We're not prioritizing it, or we don't know. So we say has been. That's the present perfect passive form. Example 2. The car was stolen during the night. Unfortunately, perhaps we don't know who stole the car yet, but the result is it was stolen. We use the third form, was stolen, in the passive. Example 3, your TOEFL score will be posted online 10 days after your test date. We don't know who's going to post it. We're not prioritizing that information. Example 4, beer was drunk less than 10 years ago. Okay, for some reason, perhaps now beer is not drunk. Whatever the disaster that caused that situation, it was drunk 10 years ago. Right. Do we know or prioritize who or what, i.e. the agent, does the action? Case 1. If the agent is unknown, use a passive form. Example 1. The sculpture was found below many layers of earth and rock. So we don't know who found it, or we're not stating it. But anyway, in this particular sentence, we are not going to be told who found the sculpture below many layers of earth and rock. So we use the passive form was found. Example 2, the package has arrived. Finally, okay, you've been waiting all day. The package has arrived. Your package has arrived. Honestly, we don't particularly care about who delivers it, but we would like to know when it's arriving. Thank you very much. Case 2, if we want to deprioritize the agent. You've already been sensing this in some of the previous examples. We use the passive form. Her life has been made into a film by a famous director. The director has not been named, or we deprioritize, and therefore her life is prioritized, you see? Whatever comes first or earlier in an English sentence typically is the main subject and we're prioritizing it. It's a good thing to remember when you want to mix up the types of sentence structures in your writing and speaking tasks. Example 4, the new racket was tested last year by multiple professional tennis players. Sorry, but for some reason, the professional tennis players here have been deprioritized, and the new tennis racket is the priority of this sentence, hence it comes first. Okay. Case 3, the agent is known and we don't want to deprioritize it. We use an active form. So this is different now. The agent or the person doing the action comes first. Example 5. Gerald has broken 3 other boxers' noses since he started last month. In other words, Gerald does the breaking. We're using the present perfect here as well. Has broken. It's the active form, subject, verb, object. Here, Gerald does the verb. He is the agent. Therefore, he comes first. It's the subject. Has broken is your verb. And 3 other boxers' noses, well, some unfortunate objects of the verb there. Number 6, my mother made the cake for you. There you go. We know who did what. In the past, it's finished. End of story. Next, try the quiz. If you need to go through this part again, you do a little bit more research if you need to, and then when you're ready, click the quiz. We'll expect you to do that before moving on to the next part.